Greetings, one and all. Welcome to a new show on the channel called NHL Ideas. On this show, I will be discussing some potential changes to the NHL or the hockey world as a whole that could be implemented. Now, since this is the first video in this series, I would like to point out that NHL Ideas is exactly that. Ideas. I will often share my opinion for or against the argument presented, but the main aim is to plant the seed of those ideas in your heads and get you die-hard hockey fans discussing whether they would work or not with other die-hard hockey fans. It's brilliant, isn't it? So don't go telling me I'm wrong all the time. I know what you YouTube commenters are like. Now that's out the way, let's get the ball rolling with a rather interesting topic. Promotion and relegation. By this I mean, what if the worst NHL teams last season were relegated to the AHL and the best teams in the AHL were promoted to the NHL? For example, let's take 3 teams from each league. There will be 31 teams coming into the NHL at the start of next season. What if the worst 3 NHL teams in the season are relegated down to the AHL and the top 3 teams in the AHL are promoted up? I'm thinking somewhere between 1 and 3. I think 1 could work because there's 31 teams now in the NHL. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe stretching it a little bit too far. But you can also wonder, so what is the criteria for the 3 teams coming up to from the AHL to the NHL? I'm thinking either the team that wins the Calder Cup, the team that wins the regular season with the most points, and then the next best, or the last 3 teams in the playoffs, or something like that. If it's 2, maybe the 2 teams that make the final of the AHL Calder Cup final. Maybe something like that. Or the team that wins the Calder Cup and the team that gets the trophy for the most points in a season. Maybe something like that. That could be interesting how that works. Now, essentially with this idea, you take away the NHL affiliation with AHL teams. This means that AHL teams manage themselves without their This means that AHL teams can manage themselves without their NHL overlords and can sign their own players. Maybe another idea could be to make the OHL, CHL and WHL the farm teams for the big leagues, more so than they already are, as teams can send down prospects to the minors if they are still eligible. So maybe instead of them just being the junior leagues, they could become the farm teams of these other teams in the NHL and the AHL. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about the draft, Odd Man Rush? What about the draft? The draft is really important. We need to think about that. I'm way ahead of you, folks. So, the draft picks. First, say we stick with the 3-team mentality for the minute. So 3 teams go down, 3 teams come up. Those teams get the first 3 picks of the draft. So the number 1 pick goes to the best team in the AHL, Second pick goes to the second best. Third pick goes to the third best. I think that's a good idea. Then the rest of the picks, as they are in the NHL, are given worst to first. So the team that avoids relegation but is like 4th worst in the league that season gets the 4th overall pick. I think it makes sense. Get rid of all this draft lottery crap. I think that's stupid. I think it's absolutely awful. So, there you go. That could be an interesting idea with the draft. This means that teams cannot tank for the first overall pick, as only the top AHL team gets it. Therefore, in order to get the first overall pick in the draft, you have to earn that pick. You can't just go, we're going to put up a really crappy squad and lose every single game this season. Then we'll get the first overall pick, get this generational player, and we'll be set. Now, you can't do that anymore. The AHL team that is the best of the rest gets the first overall pick, and they get a chance to stay in the NHL for more than 1 year, unless they get relegated again. Now, however, there is an issue with this, as long-standing successful NHL teams like the original 6, well, most of them anyway, Chicago, Pittsburgh, those sort of teams, they will likely not get a first overall pick, ever, unless they relegate and come back up, which I don't think anybody really wants to do. And they may suffer, these teams, due to consistent later picks in the draft. I mean, Chicago, since Taze and Kane, they've had much later picks in the draft. So they might be an example of, well, just draft right, really. If you make the right draft picks and everything goes to plan, then there's no problem. But I think it's very interesting to see that long-standing NHL teams may not get solid draft picks, but they still get a first-round pick. It's not really any different to a team going middle of the league and getting a 10th overall pick, you know. There is still the chance that those teams can have those picks. Now, this would also open up the ability for players on the cusp of reaching the NHL, because some of them, they play well for a few games in the NHL, then they drop massively, get sent down to the AHL, vice versa, and it repeats rather often. Now, this would give those players a chance to remain with their AHL team if their AHL team is likely to promote. If they're top of the league, if they look like they're going to win the cup, the Calder Cup, then they're more likely to say, I'll stay with the AHL team for now, I'll get used to the guys around me and work on fine-tuning my game before being promoted and coming up to the NHL where I can become a legitimate force in the league. So that would be very interesting, and it's rather than rushing the development to get to the big league. And also, AHL teams would be able to sign NHL caliber players to help them reach the NHL. You could also go, this team is on the cusp of potentially going up to the NHL. We'll sign an NHL-ready player, get him on the roster. That means he won't spend the time being a healthy scratch as a 7th defenseman or a 14th forward or a 13th forward. He can play in the NHL, in the AHL, get his time there, promote, then he's on the team for the NHL squad. So I think that will make sense. However, the league would be exposed to some weaker players from promoting AHL teams. But that might sound like a bad thing, but that is also a very good thing, as the superstars of the NHL will shine brighter against these AHL caliber teams, and the game could turn out more interesting when these teams play due to the amount of highlight reel plays and the solid work by the superstars of the league. So if you're wanting hockey to be more interesting and the NHL to be more interesting, if you have them playing an AHL level team in their first year of promotion, that's going to be brilliant. You're going to get the Steven Stamkoses and the Patrick Kanes, the Jamie Benns and the Sidney Crosbys. They're going to be fucking loving it. They're going to be lighting up those teams, making some highlight reel plays, looking like solid squads, because they have that ability to play against those teams. Therefore, it makes the whole game interesting. It makes it more exciting, makes people pumped for those games. Now, there's one final thing I'd like to say about this idea. Financially, there's an issue financially with this situation, as poor play by some franchises who are barely staying in the NHL as it is at the moment because they're not exactly very sound financially. Their poor play could ruin several of the franchises, as long-standing NHL teams that get relegated could lose fans and profits. I'm not talking about the original six, I'm not talking about the Habs, the Maple Leafs, the Rangers, the Bruins, anything like that. But teams like Columbus and teams like Winnipeg and teams like Arizona, some of those teams haven't really had much success recently and aren't very sound financially, such as Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg is the smallest market in the NHL at the moment, and Arizona's been having a lot of issues. There was much talk about them moving to a different city. So those teams, if they got relegated, that could cause a problem, because then those teams might have to fold because they're not making enough financially. But hopefully the leagues can sort them out. Hopefully they can come back with the AHL promotion, come back into the league, and it's all fine. But it's very interesting to see. I mean, me personally, I don't think there should be a promotion relegation system. I mean, I'm not sure, actually. Having looked at all this, it might be an interesting idea. It mean first of all, you can't tank for the first overall pick, and it would make the league more competitive. If you're at the bottom of the league, you don't just go, oh, we're at the bottom of the league. Well, we were shit last year, weren't we? You actually have to go, right, let's make sure we're not the bottom of the league, because otherwise we're going down to play in the American Hockey League. So yes, that is my first idea with the NHL Ideas show. What do you think about this idea? Do you think promotion and relegation should be introduced into the NHL and AHL and make those two leagues much, much closer as hockey teams? Please feel free to leave me your opinion in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys think. And also about this new show, what do you think? Do you have any suggestions on topics I should discuss? Please feel free to leave it in the comments below. But thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.